Welcome to Everyday Economics. This is the podcast that helps you learn about the economic world happening around you every day. I'm your host, Chris Krug, CEO of the 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan Franklin News Foundation. Everyday Economics is a production of America's Talking Network, and you can subscribe to all of our podcasts at americastalking.com. To support Everyday Economics, please make a tax-deductible charitable contribution by clicking the link in the show description. We're recording this episode on Friday, December 20th, and joining me as always, my friend and colleague, Dr. Orphe Divounguy, PhD economist. Dr. O, every Monday, the Center Square features your thoughts and insights with a little bit of light commentary, not too much commentary. You like to keep it straight in the on the Center Square Newswire, which is published across the country, utilized by now more than 1,100 partners in the United States. We're talking about the week ahead, but really can't talk about the week ahead without the big news from this past week. And next week's, to be honest, it's pretty light, pretty light calendar.
Yeah,
so
that's right. We're ending the year. It's a beautiful thing. It was amazing, and we're grateful for the support of our listeners. It's been so much fun. 2024.
100%. A very interesting week. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell came out midweek, and he gave the people something that they wanted, but he scared them. And what's, I have a question that exists inside of that's scary me. We'll get to that, but we have a 0.25 or a 25 basis point cut, 0.25% reduction. But Jerome Powell said, "Hey, you know what? We might not have too many cuts next year." Specifically, he said, if we were thinking we were going to have 4, it's probably going to be more like 2. So what do you make of this?
First, I got to say, I love it. I think it was great. I think the Fed, first of all, the Fed did give us a 25 basis point rate cut in line with expectations.
Why do you love it?
I love it.
I got to be honest. I like thinking about all the other commentary I've heard around Jerome Powell's, moment at the lectern. Not a lot of people are loving it. Why are you loving it?
Because the Fed raised the bar. The Fed lowered the bar for future rate cuts by basically raising its projection for the PCE, right? Inflation. It's basically saying, look, we expect PCE to end the year at 2.5%. PCE is currently below that. Today's report shows PCE was 2.4% year over year, increasing at a much slower pace, right? Increased just 0.1% in November. Core PCE is expected to ease further, right? And the unemployment rate, the Fed says, the unemployment rate, we expect it to go up to 4.3%. We're right around there. We're at 4.2%. So any slight uptick in the unemployment rate could actually, or a slight disinflation from here, could actually result in more rate cuts than the dot plot currently suggests. And so the Fed really gave markets, some sort of reassurance that it is not going to raise interest rates, and that any cooling on the labor market front could actually result in justifying further rate cuts, more rate cuts than the 2 that it pointed to in the dot plot.
All right, so let me ask you this. It's after Jerome Powell spoke, I went out into the broader world, talking to friends and people that I know that pay attention to such things, and then started trying to absorb as much of the sort of the high line thinking that does exist, among the punditry class. One of the pieces of information that I thought was kind of interesting, there was just someone had offered this thought, that Jerome Powell is continuing to speak about inflation. Obviously it's his job, but did this data really show maybe where the inflation is coming from, or why inflation is persistent? And I guess the thought there is that maybe that the Federal Reserve I mean, it's doing what it's doing, but maybe it doesn't understand what's driving inflation. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to dissect the data. And when you dissect the data, what you find out is that the reason why the headline and core inflation are diverging is basically a big increase in food and energy prices
Mm-hmm.
at a time where basically energy prices had been falling.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about disinflation of energy prices. We're talking
Right.
about deflation. Prices were actually falling
Right.
over the past year. And so any slight uptick on the energy price front results in higher headline inflation. Core inflation's moving in the right direction.
I'm
With
not sure what you're seeing at the pump, out in Greater Seattle. I mean, because your gasoline prices they're bananas. But we saw what would amount to be about a 15% increase at the pump retail pricing
right,
within the last, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks. I would call it 3 weeks just to be fair.
yeah, not surprising. It's showing up in the data, and that's part of the reason why we're getting these slightly hotter headline inflation prints.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Other than that, housing inflation continues to fall, which is a major piece, a big chunk of core inflation,
Mm-hmm.
and so things are improving. From a consumer's perspective, wage growth is now higher than price growth. And
Mm-hmm.
so real wages have improved significantly over the past year. Yes, over the past couple of, with the increase in energy prices, of course, that increase has basically stalled. And maybe we're giving back some of those real wage gains. But the consumer is in a pretty good place. The labor market still slowing, all right? And I think that's why the Fed is putting a little bit more emphasis on the labor market. The labor market is still moderating. Despite what you may have heard in the news, we probably didn't make up enough for the October ease cooling that we
Mm-hmm.
got from the hurricanes, right,
Right.
in
Right.
October.
Jobs
Uh,
report.
I
Jobs
don't think
report was terrible,
I don't think November
as we
was
recall.
strong enough, right? It
Right.
was good, but probably not strong enough to make up for all of the trouble we got into in October.
Right.
I think the labor market's still cooling,
Mm-hmm.
cooling at a slower pace, but a slow and orderly pace is a good thing, right? We look at initial jobless claims; they're in a good place, moving lower, so that's good. So you have a pretty decent labor market. You have inflation uh, stable. Core PC has been stable at 2.8%, still higher, but easing. Headline inflation increasing slightly due to energy and food prices. I think ultimately these are one-time price increases. They're probably not going to last very long. But I got to say, ultimately, when I look at the data, remember we're going to get some strong reports at the start of the year, right? We always get them. Those are going to cause major swings in terms of treasury yields and mortgage rates. So people are going to, I think we should prepare our listeners to kind of brace themselves,
Yeah.
right? And look past the strong reports in January and February. And ultimately, in the second half of 2025, my prediction is we're probably going to see more disinflation and potentially a third rate cut towards the end of next year.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, this is the first of 3 shows that we're taping today. I'm excited to talk to you, and we're going to unpack some of the things that you just said. So remember, check out Dr. Orphe Divoungui's column every Monday at thecentersquare.com. For Dr. O, this has been Chris Krug. Subscribe to Everyday Economics and other fantastic podcasts at americastalking.com.